They called it the Fringe War, a slow-burning galaxy-spanning conflict where empires collided over fractured star systems and mineral-choked moons. Out on the edges of map space, the Galactic Empire was bleeding. Its ranks, filled with disciplined warriors bred for centuries of service, were being outmaneuvered by irregular tactics and relentless ambushes. The enemy, a loosely allied force of insurgents and exiled warlords, didn't fight fair. The Empire needed unpredictability. It needed something alien, even to itself. So they looked to Earth. Humans have been part of the galactic fold for less than a decade, an unassuming species with rudimentary technology, but a violent, chaotic history that intrigued the Empire's tacticians. Their greatest strength, some whispered, was their adaptability. Others saw only recklessness. Either way, one name began circulating through the internal files of the High Command, Sergeant First Class Adrian Locke. His service record was brief, almost aggressively redacted. What little remained, fragments of mission logs, partial after-action reports, hinted at a sniper who'd operated beyond conventional military parameters. His transfer was approved in silence, without ceremony or announcement. Just a data packet, a passenger transport, and an order. When he arrived at Forward Operations Station Crydon, stationed in orbit over the war-torn planet of Farox, 6, he stood out immediately. Not for his stature, though tall by most alien standards, his presence was quieter than expected. But for the way he scanned the hangar, his eyes didn't dart. They calculated. That's him, Commander Verikist, his voice a low chitter through mandibles. The insectoid officer, bred in a hive-caste culture that revered discipline, watched the human disembark with thinly veiled skepticism. He carries no honor crest, no armor, only cloth. The aide beside him, a younger reptilian species known as a Valaxi, checked the file again. It's him, Locke, human sniper, Earth Special Recon Unit. They say he completed 22 operations with no backup, 0 casualties. Not on his side. Exaggerated, surely, Verk scoffed. But even as he spoke, his compound eyes lingered on the human's weapon, a matte black rifle longer than his own arm span, slung over one shoulder with a worn strap. No adornment, no digital assist nodes. Pure analog. Locke was assigned Omega Squad, a multi-species unit intended for high-risk insertions. His teammates greeted him with the tight-lipped neutrality common to cross-species deployments, mutual tolerance, and nothing more. The squad leader, Lieutenant Kale North, a veteran from the Aquiline Valari race, extended a clipped nod during the orientation briefing. Orders are simple, Kale said, voice resonant with the precise modulation of his people. We're clearing a forward site in Sector 8. Hostile activity has spiked. You'll provide overwatch from elevation. Radio discipline is strict. We don't expect. I don't use radios, Locke interrupted, voice low and flat. Kale blinked. You don't use. I observe patterns. Movement. Timing. I engage when necessary. No chatter. There was silence. Kale studied him for a moment, then made a subtle gesture of acceptance. Fine. Just don't get in our way. Locke didn't answer. He simply turned and left the room, his steps measured, unhurried. The next morning, the drop ship hummed as it descended into Farox X's upper atmosphere. The squad sat in silence. Locke checked his scope, cleaning the lens with a piece of cloth that looked older than the rest of his gear. Across from him, a hulking Brockery soldier, twice his mass and built of plated muscle, grunted under his breath. You speak often of silence, the Brockery said, but you are loud in tension. I can smell it. Locke didn't look up. Then your nose is broken. A ripple of amusement passed through the squad, breaking the tension for a moment. Even Kale allowed a slight twitch at the corner of his beak. The transport touched down with a thud, and Omega Squad fanned out, boots crunching against the ashen soil. Farox SX's atmosphere was dense with volcanic ash, filtering the twin suns into a permanent dusk. Structures lay crumbled and half-melted, remnants of orbital strikes and decades-old skirmishes. The squad moved with practiced precision, navigating rubble and debris, forming a perimeter. Locke didn't follow. Instead, he scaled a broken comms tower, moving with uncanny grace despite the worn weight of his rifle. He reached the top lay prone, and adjusted his scope. The battlefield spread before him like a chessboard cracked in half. He closed one eye and let the silence fill him. Through the scope, he watched the world slow. Enemy scouts, barely visible to naked eye, moved through the broken terrain like shadows. They were good, coordinated. Even his squad sensors hadn't picked them up yet. He breathed in. His finger rested on the trigger, not pressing, not waiting, just resting. Below, Omega Squad advanced into the ruins. Kale's voice crackled over the comms. "We're seeing nothing. Proceeding to checkpoint." The first shot cracked through the air like a hammer on glass. One of the enemy scouts collapsed mid-step, lifeless before their body hit the ground. Another shot, then another. In 12 seconds, 7 bodies fell. The squad froze. Sniper fire. Kale shouted, "Not ours," someone yelled back. "No, wait, I think." Kale's voice faded as he turned toward the comms tower, where a shadow moved slightly atop the peak. Then silence returned. Minutes passed. The squad reached the designated checkpoint with no resistance. Not a single hostile appeared to challenge them. They found only corpses, each killed with precise, single shots, temple, heart, spine. No wasted ammunition. No evidence of struggle. Back at base, Locke returned without ceremony. He didn't offer a report, just handed over the scope footage, nodded once, and disappeared into his quarters. Kale watched him go, unsettled. Later that night, a junior officer compiled the operation log. The kill count was 21, all confirmed. No civilian casualties. No collateral damage. All from one rifle. The report was sent up the chain. By the next morning, it had been read in hushed silence by members of the sector command. Commander Verg stared at the datapad, mandibles twitching. 21, he said softly. "He's human," his aide replied. "You asked for unpredictable." Verg didn't respond. His gaze remained fixed on the cold tally of confirmed kills, his thoughts darker than before. And across the stars, more missions waited. The next mission was supposed to be routine, a supply route clearance through the Archon Ridge. It had been hit with sporadic ambushes over the past week, enough to delay transport convoys and irritate the logistics brass, but nothing the Empire's elite couldn't handle. Omega Squad was dispatched with Locke, once again assigned to Overwatch. The squad moved with renewed caution this time, not because the terrain had changed, but because of him. No one questioned his effectiveness. That part was beyond dispute now. What unsettled them was the way it happened. Silent, clinical, and without the visible strain that most soldiers bore after a kill. He didn't celebrate. He didn't debrief. He simply returned, like a shadow that followed orders. Kale briefed the squad just before deployment. His tone, usually unshakable, had a new edge. Reports indicate potential insurgent presence along Ridge Marker 4. We maintain formation. No deviations. Locke, same position as before. You will not engage without confirmation. Locke didn't nod. He simply turned and walked toward the drop zone, adjusting the strap of his rifle with one hand. They descended without incident. The air in the Archon Ridge was thinner, laced with the chemical decay of old mining operations. Abandoned machinery lay like fossils in the dust, creating natural choke points between rusted towers and empty ore silos. Omega Squad advanced cautiously, checking every corner, their sensors sweeping wide arcs. And above, nested in the skeletal remains of a collapsed mining rig, Locke watched. Through his scope, movement blossomed like sparks across the terrain. Subtle shifts in shadow, the sway of disturbed dust, heat signatures flickering unnaturally in the distance. The enemy wasn't waiting in ambush. They were preparing a trap. The squad was walking into a snare. He exhaled slowly, letting his fingers settle against the trigger. He spoke once, low and clipped, through the backup comm still embedded in his collar. "Contact. 4 o'clock. Silo base. Prepare for breach." Kale's response was immediate. "Copy. Repositioning." A second later, the first shot cracked through the ridge. Locke hit a scout mid-sprint. A narrow shot through the neck that severed spine and trachea in a single round. Then another target, perched atop a tower with a plasma rifle, tumbled forward as the round split his visor. The rest of the enemy force, now revealed, opened fire. Omega's squad returned fire, but they barely had to. Locke painted the battlefield in silence. One chopper threat, one kilper shot. Through the chaos, the enemy faltered. Their rear ranks disintegrated first, picked apart before they could even return fire. Those who tried to charge were dropped mid-lunge. Those who ran found themselves sprinting into crossfire. Not a single one made it more than a few steps before falling. When the dust settled, the silence felt unnerving. Too complete. Omega's squad regrouped at the base of the ridge. The bodies lay sprawled in precise arcs, each hit surgical. A Brachary soldier, not prone to emotion, muttered a short prayer to the war god of his people, not out of reverence, but fear. Kale tapped into the squad's log interface and pulled the raw data. The results stared back at him with sterile precision. 36 confirmed kills, all credited to one soldier. No friendly fire, no civilian presence, not even a missed shot. The number hung in the air like a hanging sword. They returned to base without further incident, though no one spoke on the transport back. Even the Brachary remained silent. The mission logs were compiled, verified, and sent to Sector Command. An hour later, 3 ranking strategists called an emergency review. Commander Farox reviewed the footage in private. He watched the enemy fall one by one, each death more unnerving than the last. Locke never flinched. He never lost rhythm. His breathing didn't spike once, not even under fire. Farox enlarged the biometric feed. Pulse rate, stable. Ocular tracking, flawless. Stress response, minimal. He's not using enhancements, Farox muttered aloud. No implants, no stimulants, just instinct. His aide, waiting at the corner of the room, cleared his throat. There's more, sir. A civilian logistics transport recorded background audio from the operation. Off-channel. We isolated a few seconds where Locke spoke. Farox turned. He communicated? The aide nodded, pale. Just 6 words. Before the first shot, the commander opened the file. It was static at first, then the unmistakable calm of Locke's voice. Prepare for breach. They're already here. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even excitement. It was certainty. The next morning, Locke was called into an intelligence debrief. Not a formal one. There was no rank between him and the Empire's information analysts, but an observation review where 2 analysts attempted to ask questions without making them sound like accusations. Sergeant Locke, one began, her voice mechanical through the translation filter. Your kill count over 2 operations is 57 confirmed. Would you describe yourself as exceptional? No, Locke said. Then how? Targets move, he interrupted. I shoot. If they stop moving, I stop shooting. The other analyst, a bulbous-eyed researcher from Solari species, leaned forward. There are systems designed to make decisions like that. AI-calibrated railguns, tactical drones. Yet you outperform them consistently. Why? Locke paused, not out of hesitation, but boredom. Machines hesitate, he said. They need parameters, morality, risk calculations. I don't. That ended the session. Word spread fast, as it always did in the Empire's corridors. Not official reports, but whispered rumors of a human who could end battles alone, of a soldier who didn't need orders or support. Some began calling him the Ghost. Others had less romantic names. Deathbringer, Anomaly, Aberration. Kale tried to speak with him once more, after hours, on the observation deck overlooking Farox axis orbit. He approached Locke without armor, without rank. You're not just another soldier, Kale said. Locke didn't reply. You terrify them, Kale continued. Not just the enemy. Us. Still no response. Finally, Locke turned. His face was unreadable, but his voice was colder than the vacuum outside. Then send someone else next time. He walked away. And yet, when the next mission was scheduled, a joint operation in the shattered city of Archalon Prime, his name was already on the roster. Sector Command summoned a classified review under the pretense of strategic reassessment, but everyone in the chamber knew it was about the human. The room, hidden within the Imperial Dreadnought Obsidian Pact, was lined with grav-suspended data holospheres and flickering tactical overlays. 12 figures surrounded the circular table: admirals, behavioral analysts, fleet tacticians. Commander Farox presided at the center, his expression unreadable behind his armored carapace. "The kill count has reached 92, he said, in 3 deployments. No one spoke at first. The implications sat too heavily between them. An intelligence coordinator from the Valari sector finally stirred. Her elongated fingers tapped against her datapad. "There is no record of non-augmented infantry achieving that level of lethality, not even during the Draxan purges. Not with this consistency." "He is human," growled a Gryvax general, his voice a low metallic rumble. "They are unpredictable, yes. Capable, yes. But this is something else. It borders on myth. Or madness," another muttered. Farox activated a feed above the table. A rotating file appeared: Earth Defense Force archives. Partially decrypted. Redacted segments flickered like static. "We requisitioned access to his personnel dossier. Human Command tried to restrict it. We bypassed the security firewall." He paused. "This is not a soldier. This is a survivor." Images surfaced. Scorched cityscapes, collapsed buildings, urban environments laced with debris and civilian corpses. Mission tags appear beneath each: Op Lantern Vale, Op Nocturne, Op Glasswalk. All Black Ops. All suppressed from public records. Each with Locke's name. The footage was grainy, yet horrifyingly clear. In one mission, Locke moved through a war-torn slum with 4 rounds left in his magazine and 13 hostiles between him and his objective. He didn't retreat. He didn't pause. He moved with cold precision, like death given direction. A behavioral analyst spoke, without lifting her gaze. He was deployed in conflict zones too unstable for drones. Zones where ethics conflicted with survival. His choices were not trained, they were learned. "You mean he's damaged?" said the Gryvax general. "No," she replied. "I mean he adapted." Outside the chamber, Locke waited in the observation lounge. It wasn't a cell, but the guards posted at either end of the corridor told a different story. He sat alone, eyes closed, his rifle resting beside him like a sleeping beast. Kale arrived unannounced, without rank displayed on his uniform. The Valari officer had requested access against protocol, citing field familiarity. Whether that was trust or unease, even he wasn't sure. "You know why they're talking," Kale said. Locke opened his eyes but didn't speak. "They think you're dangerous. Not just to the enemy. To us." Locke picked up his rifle, inspected the chamber, then set it back down. "They're not wrong." Kale tilted his head. "You don't deny it?" "Dangerous is context," Locke said. "To the ones I aim at, I'm lethal. To the ones beside me, I'm insurance. The only variable is the trigger." Kale studied him for a long moment. "You're not like other humans I've served with. That's the idea." Elsewhere on the ship, the analysts pushed further into the restricted files. Deeper psychological reports surfaced. Fragments from field therapists' after-action assessments. Encrypted recordings. The deeper they searched, the less they found about Locke the man, and the more they saw Locke the function. In one recovered recording, a weary field psychologist asked him about remorse, about the emotional toll of his missions. His voice in the recording was quiet, even childlike. "I don't feel less," he said. "I feel later, after the fight, when I'm alone." The psychologist asked if he feared what he'd become. "No," Locke said. "I fear it will be needed again." The review committee dispersed in silence that day, too shaken to reach a consensus. A recommendation was made: submit Locke for psychological containment and further study. But no one volunteered to deliver the order. Even those who feared him didn't want to provoke him. Meanwhile, preparations for the Archalon Prime operation were underway. The city had been glassed from orbit during a previous rebellion, but its underground sectors had remained intact, now infested with insurgents using the tunnels to raid orbital platforms. The mission required close-quarters infiltration, urban warfare, the kind Locke excelled at. Kale approached him the night before deployment. "Command still doesn't trust you," he said. "They shouldn't. Locke replied. Yet they keep sending you. Because I do what needs doing. Kale hesitated. There will be civilians this time. Survivors. Refugees in the tunnels. It's not a clean battlefield. Locke's expression didn't change. It never is. The next day, the transport launched into orbit, carrying Omega Squad toward the ruins of Archalon Prime. Below them, the shattered city awaited, blackened towers and fractured concrete veining across a wasteland of ash and silence. Locke sat alone during the descent, eyes closed, rifle across his knees. Kale watched him, wondering, not for the first time, if this man was a soldier or something else entirely. And deep below the city's surface, within the abandoned metro rails and collapsed shelters, the enemy prepared. They knew the Empire was coming, but they didn't know the human was with them. The city was a graveyard. Every structure bore the scars of orbital fire. Windows melted into slag. Towers sheared mid-spire. Vehicles fused the roads they once traveled. Archalon Prime no longer resembled a city so much as a memory of one. And beneath it, in the labyrinth of subways and collapsed zones, ghosts moved with purpose. Omega Squad descended through a breached transit shaft, rappelling into shadow. Their armor's thermal lenses activated automatically, bathing the darkness in red contours and body heat signatures. Concrete dust fell like snow. The silence was thick, too thick. Even in a dead city, silence had a weight. Locke moved ahead of the formation without needing permission. Kale watched him pass the line of sight of every squad member without a single one offering protest. He didn't command through rank. He led by inevitability. That rifle, slung low and silent, had more authority than a dozen flags. They advanced into the ruins of a rail hub, a nexus of collapsed tracks and shattered support beams. Tripwires, static mines, displacer charges designed to rip apart armor from below. Locke spotted each one before anyone else. He dismantled them like he'd seen them built. Too careful, Kale muttered, glancing at the placement of a device meant to trigger only under full squad weight. They know we're coming. They know I'm coming, Locke replied quietly, not turning his head. The first contact was a whisper of movement. A figure in salvaged armor stepped from the shadows with a crude detonator. Locke raised his rifle and fired in a single motion, the slug tearing through the insurgent's skull before his thumb could twitch. The body collapsed without drama. No speech. No warning. They're watching us, not attacking, assessing. Locke crouched beside the corpse, eyes narrowing. It's not defense. It's delay. The squad pushed deeper. Resistance escalated, brief, targeted bursts from concealed positions, flares to blind thermals, noise distorters. They were baiting traps, trying to funnel the squad into bottlenecks. But they hadn't planned for someone like Locke. Every corner they reached, he was there first. Every breach, every angle of ambush, he saw them before they triggered. It wasn't luck. It wasn't even training. It was memory. Experience layered so deeply it had become instinct. At the ancient interchange, they hit a wall of fire. Enemy combatants rained plasma from a web of jury-rigged catwalks strung across the cavernous ceiling. Omega's squad scattered, returning fire, but they were pinned. Locke vanished into the vents above without a word. Kale almost called after him, then stopped. He knew better. The fight became chaos, bullets and bolts lancing through dust. Then, like falling dominoes, the enemy fire ceased. One by one, they slumped from their positions, silenced with surgical precision. When Locke reemerged from a high-access hatch, no words passed between him and the others. "Clear," he said simply. Kale moved to him, voice low. "They're defending something." A point deeper down. "They're not defending it," Locke said. "They're waiting for us to reach it." That final stretch led them beyond mapped territory. Tunnels turned into buried ruins. Stone walls, older than the Imperial record. Forgotten infrastructure carved from another age. The very air felt heavier. The path ended at a vault. Immense, circular, marked with faded glyphs. Its edges were lined with conduits, powered now by reconnected batteries. It wasn't just sealed. It was dormant, as if waiting for activation. A line of insurgents stood guard, But they didn't fire. From behind them stepped a woman. Her eyes, hard and dark, studied Locke like a specter from his past. "You survived Nocturne," she said softly. "I didn't think anyone did." Cale frowned, glancing between them. "You know her?" Locke didn't answer. He hadn't lowered his rifle. He hadn't raised it, either. "You were one of ours once," the woman continued, "before they wiped the files, before they buried the truth. You remember Lanternvale, what they told you to do, what you became." Silence stretched too long. Cale stepped forward. "Locke, what is this?" But Locke's eyes were locked on hers. She saw something there. Recognition. Guilt. Maybe both. "You think they call you a monster because of your kill count?" the woman asked, her voice a scalpel. "No, they call you that because you're proof of what they made. You're not their asset. You're their shame." Locke's jaw tightened. "You want me to switch sides? Betray them? I want you to remember who they are. You use civilians as cover," Locke said. "Use kids to hold charges. You want to talk about monsters? And yet you kept pulling the trigger." She stepped forward slowly, no weapon drawn. "This vault, it's not a weapon. It's a record, the evidence of what happened, what they did. I wasn't going to fight you. I was going to open it, let the galaxy see." Cale moved to Locke's side. "She's bluffing, or she's mad." But Locke's eyes never left hers. "You had a choice, Locke," she said, quiet now. "You still do." For one beat of silence, he didn't move. Then he raised his rifle and fired. She dropped before the sentence finished. The others didn't fight. They melted into shadows. Not fleeing, simply gone. Cale exhaled, tension leaving in a rush. "Why?" "She was going to open it," Locke said. "Whatever's inside, the decision isn't hers. It's above all of us." "But she wasn't wrong, was she?" Cale asked, voice just above a whisper. Locke didn't answer. The retrieval team arrived an hour later. The vault was tagged for classified transport, the site sealed. Omega's squad was ordered back to the Obsidian Pact. Cale watched Locke during ascent. He hadn't spoken since the shot. Just stood, still as stone, eyes fixed on nothing. "You did the right thing," Cale said. Locke finally looked at him. "I didn't come here to do the right thing," he replied. "I came because they asked what I do best." Cale hesitated. "And what's that?" Locke turned away. "End things." As the dropship rose to the layers of wreckage, the ruins of Archalon Prime vanished beneath them. But something stayed behind. Something not buried in the rubble or in the vault, but in the man they had brought into their ranks. Not a hero, not a monster, something in between. And somewhere in the depths of the Empire, they were already drafting the next mission.